So, welcome back to another episode of the Lore Build series where I make a build that fits the story of whatever character from whatever movie, with the caveat that I am not allowed to use any duplicate perks, nor am I allowed to use that character's teachable perks. And the character we're going to be doing today is Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise. Keep in mind how I said franchise as a whole. We'll talk about that later in the video, but for our first perk we have Babysitter. In Halloween 1978, Laurie Strode takes on the responsibility as a babysitter for Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace and taking care of them while their parents are out, carving jack-o'-lanterns, popping popcorn, and then eventually protecting them from a boogeyman that is lurking in the shadows. For the next perk, we have Alert. One of the reasons why Laurie was able to survive her encounter with the Shape was because of how aware she was of her surroundings. She always felt that there was somebody watching her from the distance, and she didn't distract herself with things such as drugs and alcohol, unlike her friends who met a swift demise by the hands of Michael Myers. Next up, we have Resilience. This perk represents the ability for Laurie to shake off any pain that comes at her, such as being stabbed in the arm, falling down a flight of stairs, running on a broken leg, and eventually being choked out by Michael Myers, all in an effort to protect the ones that she cares about. And for our last perk, we have Built to Last. Not only is Laurie able to take a lot of damage, but she's also able to dish out a lot of damage, stabbing Michael in both the neck and the stomach, holding him off long enough for Dr. Loomis to come in and save the day. For my item and my offering, I'm going to be bringing a key and the Haddonfield offering, and I'm going to be dropping a key under the mat at the Myers house, very much like how Laurie did in the 1978 film. And without any further ado, let's get into the video. So for this video and every other survivor-based lore build in the future, I'm going to be doing something a little different. Instead of going over the specific movie like I do with the killer builds, instead I'm actually going to be going over each and every version of Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise, talking about what I like about her, what I don't like about her, and then ranking her on a tier list. I'll do this for other characters like Dr. Loomis, Ashley Williams, Sidney Prescott, and whatever, and I'll leave the actual movie analysis part for the killer builds just so I'm not redoing the entire Halloween franchise or whatever. Make it a little easier on myself. Starting off, we have the OG, the 1978 version of Laurie Strode, and my biggest like about this version of Laurie is how she set the tone for future final girls to come after her. She is the definitive final girl archetype. Now, she's definitely not the first final girl. That title can go to characters like Sally Hardesty or that girl from Black Christmas. Can't quite remember her name, but you know, that girl. But in my opinion, I think Laurie is probably the first notable final girl that sets a standard and has this bar that characters can either try to match or exceed, like Nancy Thompson or Sidney Prescott, some of the greatest final girls of all time. Having these qualities like being smart, resilient, resourceful, and packing a hell of a punch, which leads into my next like, Laurie's unexpected strength. The fact that Laurie was able to go toe-to-toe with Michael for as long as she did is just mind-boggling to say the least. There are very few characters that have actually gone one-on-one with Michael and have lived to tell the tale, like Dr. Loomis, Tommy Doyle, Busta Rhymes, and even other versions of Laurie Strode. But the fact that she did it with no prep time whatsoever is just insane. Michael got the literal jump on her and she still was able to hold him off long enough for Dr. Loomis to come in with 6 rounds into Michael's fucking chest. The only thing I don't like about her, which leads into my only dislike about this version of Laurie, is the fact that she's just a little too bland for my taste. I find a lot of characters in this movie are a lot more interesting comparably to her, like Michael Myers, Dr. Loomis, and even Annie. I think Annie is a much more interesting character than Laurie Strode by a long shot. The only depth that we actually get with Laurie in this movie is her little crush on Ben Tramer and her interactions with Tommy and Lindsay. That's about it. But it does not set her character back by any means whatsoever. It's just a little nitpick that I have with her. For the tier list, I cannot bring myself to put her in S tier because there's a couple more Lauries that are a little better than her in my opinion. I mean, a lot better. The number one Laurie in the franchise, in my opinion, is leagues above the original Laurie. But I am confident to say that I will be putting Laurie Strode from 1978 in the A tier. Next up, we have Laurie from Halloween 2, and there is just not a lot to go by for this version of Laurie. She spent most of her time in her hospital bed doing absolutely nothing until the last, 20 minutes of the film. She didn't get the ball rolling until the very end of the movie, which just sucks, man. Doesn't mean that I couldn't find something to like about her. I do like her interactions with Jimmy when he's not being a dirty little stalker, coming into her room when she's unconscious and caressing her hand. It's like, bro, But yeah, every other interaction with him is pretty fun. He's a nice guy, cares for her a lot, and becomes the father of Jamie Lloyd that we see in Halloween 4. So, thumbs up for me, I suppose. Something else I do like about this Laurie is, like I said before, the very end of the movie where she is running away from Michael and try to avoid him as much as she possibly can, until finally she gets a revolver and puts 2 shots directly in the eye holes. The accuracy to do that is just insane. Did she mean to do that? Was that an accident? Please, Laurie, tell me. I need to know. But like I mentioned before, my biggest dislike about this version of Laurie is the fact that she's just so underutilized. Being restricted to her hospital bed for the entire movie is just a cardinal sin in my opinion. You're wasting so much acting potential. Another thing I really don't like is all the pointless scenes in this movie, like with her dreams, her just waking up and then falling back asleep, her crying about how she doesn't want to fall asleep. But overall, I don't think this Laurie is bad. I think Jamie Lee Curtis did the best with what she got, like how she is going to be doing for the rest of this franchise. Well, not the rest of this franchise, but some movies in the rest of the franchise. I can't put her any higher than B, so I'm unfortunately going to have to put her in the C tier. Next up, we have Laurie Strode from Halloween H2O, and you're already going to know my ranking by the time I finish my next sentence, but this is probably the best version of Laurie Strode we have ever seen in the Halloween franchise, hands down. In my opinion, this is probably the movie that solidified Laurie as a slasher icon, straight up. And the biggest thing that I think really helped out with that is Jamie Lee Curtis's performance as Laurie Strode. She did a phenomenal job in this role, and this is probably the best interpretation of the whole Laurie Strode trauma angle that was tried to be replicated in Halloween 2018, but wasn't really done very well in that movie because it was a little over dramatized, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But the way that H2O Laurie handles her trauma from the events of Halloween 1978 feels super realistic. Her waking up in night terrors, drowning herself in alcohol, trying to balance her work life, love life, and her kid's life all in hand while also dealing with this trauma, I feel is just so good. Jamie Lee Curtis did such a good job, and not only that, but she's also a fucking badass in this movie, which leads into my next like. Laurie gave Michael a hell of a beating in this movie. The first time she saw him, she put an axe in his chest, she's throwing knives at him, kicking him in the balls, making that goofy ass mask look even goofier, and then pulling a whole Michael Myers 180 on him, hiding in a window drape, popping out and stabbing the fuck out of him in the chest, then pushing him off a balcony, kind of reminiscing in the whole ending of Halloween 1978 with his arms sprayed out. She did try to double tap him by putting a knife in his head like a zombie or something like that, but then LL Cool J comes back from the dead and stops her from doing so, which inadvertently gives us Halloween Resurrection. If that didn't happen, then Halloween Resurrection would have never happened. So thank you, LL Cool J. We really appreciate your contribution to the Halloween franchise. But I'm not complaining because we get Busta Rhymes in the next film, so I'm happy. For the dislikes, I don't have anything bad to say about this version of Laurie because she's just absolutely perfect in this movie. The only thing I can say is I wish she had a better Michael to go up against because I just hated this Michael in this movie. For the tier list, I'm automatically going to be putting this Laurie in S tier. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. She is the greatest version of Laurie we have ever seen. Next up, we have Laurie from Halloween Resurrection, and once again, we really don't have a lot to go off. We have even less than we did in Halloween 2, which is saying something. And everything that we do have is really not all that great. The only thing I can say that I do like is Jamie Lee Curtis's performance as Laurie. She always does a good job, so that's a given. She didn't really do Jack Diddley Squat because she was only contracted for like, what, 5 minutes of the movie, which leads into my first dislike being the lack of screen time for Laurie. And the next thing I don't like about Laurie is just how stupid she is. How could you possibly think that the guy that you hung on that little crane thing is not Michael? You just saw him like 1.5 minutes ago walk straight through your locked door. How could you possibly think that this is another paramedic that Michael just slipped into his own clothes and then made him walk out onto the roof? How could you possibly come to that conclusion in this situation? Sure, Michael did the whole, my head hurts, but you just saw him like a minute ago. How would he have enough time to even do that? So without saying, this Laurie is going immediately into the D tier. She's not quite F because there's a special Laurie that is well deserving of that spot in the F tier. And here we have another one of my favorite versions of Laurie, being the remake Lorie Strode. Now, don't think I'm automatically going to be putting her in the S tier because she's one of my favorites. I'm obviously not going to do that. I'm going to be very fair with my assessment, so afraid not, friends, afraid not. But I do really like this version of Laurie. I love Scout Taylor Compton's performance in this movie, and I think that she doesn't quite fill the shoes of Jamie Lee Curtis, but she does a pretty good job and kind of makes it her own at the same time. Instead of being the very reserved and innocent version of Laurie that we saw in Halloween 1978. Instead, she's a lot more spunky, a lot more spontaneous, and doing things that, you know, the normal Laurie Strode would never do, like, I don't know, fingering a bagel or something like that. People who have never seen Rob Zombie's Halloween are going to be so confused. And I also find this version of Laurie to be a lot more relatable than the OG. Granted, I was born in the big old 00 so obviously this version of Laurie is going to be a little bit more relatable. But even then, her performance still holds up to this day, so that's at least something, right? The only thing I don't like about this version of Laurie is that she doesn't really differentiate herself very much from the original. A lot of this movie is basically just a shot-for-shot remake, a copy and paste, which is very much what Laurie is in this movie, just a copy and paste version of 1978 Laurie, with a little bit of sugar and spice and everything nice added in there to, you know, a little bit more pizzazz. Considering everything I just said, I don't think she can go any higher or even be in the same placement as the OG Laurie, so I'm going to be putting her in the B tier. Next up, we have Laurie Strode from Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and my god, this movie, man. This fucking movie. Granted, you know, Scout Taylor Compton once again did a phenomenal job, but god damn is she's just so damn annoying, especially in the director's cut, man. Holy fuck, she is either crying, she's either bitching, she's either moaning, she's either screaming every 5 seconds, man. Like every single time she's on screen, she is just so fucking miserable, and it's so sad to see the potential that she had in the original movie just squandered, which is kind of a testament to this movie in general. Every character except Officer Brackett and Annie were ruined in this movie. Michael was ruined, Loomis was ruined, Laurie was ruined, everybody was ruined, man, and it's just so sad to see. With that all being said, this is the character that I mentioned before that is obviously going in the F tier, where she belongs. Moving on to Sarah Connor, Laurie Strode from Halloween 2018. And my biggest like about this version of Laurie is just how much of a badass she is in this movie. Yeah, she is locked and loaded in this movie. She's carrying around a revolver. She's actually a capable fighter this time around. And she has a whole foot locker, whole like basement full of weapons, food, and shit like that will last her to like the second coming of the Ice Age. Like she is ready for Michael's return, and it isn't even funny. And I also like how she kind of feels like the second coming of Dr. Loomis in this movie. The essence of Dr. Loomis is just showering over her, and I love it. And I love how hell-bent she is on defeating Michael Myers once and for all. I don't really like how she wasted like 40 years of her entire life doing so, but I do like how once Michael is out, she knows she's out, she's on the prowl, she's looking for him, she's going in every house, not going in every house, but, you know, patrolling the streets, and if she sees anything suspicious, she goes into the house, and then when she finds Michael, bang, 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 on site. It's just on site with Laurie in this movie, and it's so great. Like I mentioned before, I don't really like how unrealistic Laurie's motivations in this movie were. I don't like how she wasted 40 years of her life, 40 years of some of the best years of her entire life just out the window, just gone, ruining every relationship she has ever had, preparing for an event that possibly would never happen, keep in mind. Instead of doing it like Halloween H2O Laurie, where, you know, she is a capable fighter, she can still fuck shit up if she wants to, but she still has a life. Like, dude, it just does not make any sense. But that is about it. I do think that this Laurie is a little better than the original Laurie, just by a little bit, so I will happily be snuggling 2018 Laurie right next to the OG Laurie Strode. Halloween Kills, another movie where Laurie does Jack Diddley Squad once again. I don't know what it is about these hospital settings, but every single time that Laurie is in some sort of hospital setting, she does jack shit, man. I don't understand it. Granted, I do appreciate that this movie did focus a lot more on Michael, because me like Michael. If they had just cut out all the hospital scenes, or at least cut out most of them, and had Laurie do at least something, this movie would have been so much better. But no, they insist on just doing Laurie dirty every other movie. It's so annoying, man. One thing I do like about this version of Laurie is the fire in her tummy that she still has from 2018. You know, she still wants to take out Michael by any means necessary. Even when she's just flat out injured, has a hole in her stomach, she's like, nah, let me at that motherfucker. I want him. It's on sight with that motherfucker. But moving on to the dislikes, one thing I didn't like is the dialogue for Laurie Strode. And you know, it's not all bad. There are a few moments where she does do well, but the moments where she breaks out into this full-on philosophical speech as if she is Dr. Loomis kind of rubs me the wrong way. And I know I said before that I do like how she does feel like the second coming of Dr. Loomis, but that's more so of like a physical perspective, not an actual, you know, dialogue perspective. You know, leave that for, you know, Donald Pleasance or a Donald Pleasance impersonator. Let's, you know, keep it in that realm of, you know, authenticity. And also the self-importance dialogue where she's like, no, he's obsessed with me, he's coming after me, he's coming to this hospital. I'm like, no, he isn't. He's just going about his business, Laurie. He's just killing as he please. He's doing what Michael does best, and that's just killing. He does not give a fuck about you, which I'm glad Officer Hawkins had hammered into her thick ass fucking skull, man. But overall, Laurie's not bad in this movie by any means. I just think a little bit of the dialogue's a little wonky, and I'll put her in the C tier just to be safe. Lastly, we have Laurie Strode from Halloween Ends, and this is probably the second best Laurie in the Halloween franchise. Probably the best performance by Jamie Lee Curtis as well. I know I hold the H2O version of Laurie in high regard, but Jamie Lee acted her fucking ass off in this movie, and it's amazing. She feels like a combination of the goody two-shoes that we saw in Halloween 1978 and the Spitfire that we had in 2018. She is great in this movie. But that is about it. Now, for this version of Laurie, obviously, like I said, she's the second best character in the entire franchise, in my opinion, or the second best version of Laurie, that is. So I'm going to easily put her in the S tier right next to H2O Laurie. That's about it. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comments down below. Did you enjoy it? Would you like to see more of it or not? You know, it's up to you guys. If you guys like this video, then I will make more of them. But anyways, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.
God damn you.